Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Equidox training session. My name is Sean Keegan, and I'm joined by Angela Balcom from the Accessibility Center and Pat Needles and Soli Aga from Onyx, the company that makes the Equidox application. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen briefly and just kind of walk through a few orientation things before we get started. So we're going to be talking about Equidox today, and we sent out an email notification with the agenda topics. And as we go through the presentation today, though, a couple of things to keep in mind. Please mute your line. I know that many of you are in a busy office, and so we'd like to have the conversations we're having within our Zoom meeting stay within our Zoom meeting, as I'm sure the other conversations are quite exciting outside of those. But please mute your line if you're not speaking. This session will be recorded, and so we will be posting these recordings on the CCC Accessibility Center website. Please ask questions. We will be monitoring the chat, and we also welcome you to simply unmute your line and ask a question. Don't worry about feeling if you're being rude or you're stepping on someone's toes. Feel free to unmute your line and just jump in with a question if you have one. But we will be monitoring the chat as well. Our next training is on January 25th at 1 p.m. We will be having additional email notifications sent out between now and then. So stay tuned for those training topics, which will be different than what we talk about today. Okay. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Pat and Soli to continue the conversation on Equidox.
Thank you so much, Sean. I appreciate that. Welcome aboard, everybody. If this is your first time and first exposure to Equidox, welcome. I think you'll find today's training to be very helpful and useful moving forward using Equidox, as Sean mentioned. Feel free at any time to either use the chat box for questions or, like Sean said, unmute yourself, and we'll be happy to go over that. And today, our systems engineer, Soli Aga, will be doing the training, and those training topics that Angela had shared with us earlier will be the agenda. So with no further ado, let's get busy, and I will introduce you to Soli, and he will get us moving today. So thank you for joining us, folks, and have a great day and a great training session, and feel free to pop any questions in there that you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Good afternoon, or yeah, it's afternoon for you too. So good afternoon, everyone. As you know, my name is Soli, and I'm going to be walking you through Equidox. I'm going to try to share my screen and see if I have rights, and I do. Okay, my screen should be visible. Someone give me confirmation.
Looks good, Soli.
Yep, good to go.
Great. So welcome to Equidox. As Sean said, feel free to interrupt. You can interrupt while we're doing the demo or save your questions till the end, and I'd be happy to show you any additional examples that may clear up anything that might remain unclear by the time we're finished. Also, feel free to use the chat. I believe Pat and Angela will be monitoring the chat, so if you're a bit shy or feel that I'm on a roll and don't want to interrupt, feel free to use the chat.
And I will just kind of pause right there, Soli. A couple messages in the chat room there is that you are not heard very well. So
okay, good. Just my mic a little. Is that better?
Yes, and just so you know, in the group chat, there's a individual using a screen reading software and would appreciate it if you could read and describe pertinent information during the training.
That'd be my pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get started. So welcome to Equidox. As you know, Equidox is a web-based app. It is hosted in the Google Cloud. So it's all browser-based. It's best to use Chrome, as Chrome is also a Google product, but we do support other browsers. So feel free to use whatever you're comfortable with. but the best performance will be found in Chrome. So when you arrive at the site, app.equidox.co, your admin should have created you a valid user for which you may have received a validation email, which you probably clicked on and validated your account with a password, etc. So once all that's done, you'll be able to enter your credentials into the username and password dialog. Of course, click sign in, and that brings you to the main interface of Equidox. In your case, it's very possible you have no documents in your queue. In other cases, your admin may have already shared documents with you. So what you see when you arrive here will vary based on your own document library. But if it is empty, fear not, we are able to upload or import documents, and I will show you how to do that in 1 second. So from the main interface, this is pretty much it. Very clean, very easy. Most of the power is contained when we're actually remediating a page, which we'll explore in a second. So here we're able to see some labels that we've created, and I'll show you how to create those later. We're able to sort the documents and filter the documents. So I have quite a few. So the filter, of course, comes in fairly handy. Up here in the top right-hand corner, I'm able to access my profile settings to add further detail to the account. I can also observe the version number of Equidox. As it's a web app, we publish updates fairly regularly, so that's good as we add features and improve other stability and enhancements. There's settings. So settings can be accessed from the left-hand tab or icon list. Can also be accessed from the pull down in the top right. This is, of course, where you could create labels. Groups if you're an admin, so I won't get into that as I know that most of you will not be administrators. If any of you are, feel free to reach out to myself, Sean, or Angela, or Pat, of course, to ask questions if you have any about administering. Accounts would fall under the same sort of guideline. It's an admin thing, and search we're not going to touch today, but it's for a search appliance. There's the help, so this comes in really handy. We're going to go through a lot of what's in here today together. So it's always a good idea to maybe watch these videos. I think there's 13 or something like that. They walk you through some of the basic ins and outs of managing and working with documents. There's also a user guide. So if we click on the user guide, it takes us to a wiki, and there's a table of contents, and you're able to get a little bit more information on any of the features, zone properties, document properties, and all the other things, again, that we're going to explore today. So feel free to explore the wiki and those videos. And of course, if you ever have questions from anywhere at any time in the site, you're able to click on the Having Trouble tab, which enables you to contact us straight at our support department. So we try to have about a 24 to 48 hour turnaround on most tickets. So feel free to select Equidox out of the product category and add as much information as you can to this text box with your credentials, and we'll be happy to get back to you. So don't be shy, feel free to reach out. Notifications. So if ever there are new docs, this is where you'd find out. It's helpful if you have a lot of docs in your list to get a shorter summary of what is available within your queue. Of course, the top button here takes you to your queue. So the top button on the left-hand side as part of the 6 tabs that we have to select from. So for the benefit of those who may need a bit more detail, it goes Documents Queue, Import, Notifications, Settings, Help, and of course the ability to log out. So let's get started. I'm going to click on Import Document, or the second tab. and it brings us to a upload modal. And what we can do here is drag and drop a file, as we're all used to doing from our respective file explorers or finders. I can also simply click and it will open a file dialog. I'm going to go ahead and select this example that we're going to use today for this demo. Certain browser limitations may limit the size of the file that we can accept in this modal. So you can always use the URL uploader, which is unlimited. So that can come in handy if you have files very simply over 100 meg. And I've seen some PDFs well over a gig. For what reason, sane or otherwise, I don't know. But there were a lot of very nice pictures in there. I guess that's why it was so big. So once you've uploaded, so now I have this file basically uploaded to the cloud. It hasn't been changed at all. It's just a copy from my computer to the cloud. And then now I'm going to click import. So import is a slightly different process. It's actually going to try to open up the PDF, look inside, and try to see what kind of information is available. This can take a long time depending on the structure and content and number of pages in the PDF you are importing. In most cases, it's fairly quick, as the cloud is a powerful and awesome place to write and deploy software. But nonetheless, it can often take a little bit longer than the upload process. So as you can see here, we've worked through the doc. It's now ready for conversion. I can click open right here and get started. I can also import more than one document at a time. So I could have just selected 2 if I'd liked. There's no limit to the number. I think we tested for 100 on a normal basis, so don't be shy. And if you have 100 documents to convert, I think the least of your problems is the uploads. So let's get started. You can open it from the open button. That's easy enough. And then of course, this document will be available in the documents queue. It's right here. There's me, and the title of the doc, how long it's been in the system, and of course the original PDF file name. So of course, for those of us used to conversions, we know that title and file name are 2 different things, and that's why this is here. But we'll explore that further in just a second. So to get started, you click on a doc. There it is. It's got 8 pages, nope, 12 pages, my apologies. I know that it's got this original PDF URL, so I always have access to the original doc. I could add a label here if ever I wanted to, but I'm not going to. But there we go, a bunch of labels. I can see when the doc was created and modified. I can also see how it was produced. So this might say Microsoft Word. It might say Google Docs. It might say anything really. I've seen Quark Express and all sorts of stuff in the producer category. But as we all know, it doesn't matter how you create the PDF, whether you use Word or a cloud service or your phone, because you can easily type out some notes on your phone and save as a PDF. And that's all Equidox really needs, is a file that is in fact saved as a PDF. So from Adobe, PDF has a standard, and that's the standard we're looking for. So it's irrelevant really what producer it is. It's just good to know in case there's some weird behavior, i.e. Not every doc is created equal. So sometimes it helps to know where the person is coming from, but that's a more advanced comprehension, and we can get into that on another session. Images, very important. If you don't add alt tag or artifact images, you will get flagged. Of course, number of pages and language. So language is the default for the whole doc. Default to English, obviously. I live in Quebec, Montreal, very nice, beautiful city, covered in snow right now, freezing, and French on occasion. So I often use the 2 languages, French and English, in conversion. So I can set a default for the entire document and then set a second language for each zone, which we're going to see in just a second. So let me just get out of here. Metadata, this is pretty basic. Anyone who's used to the web will know you can add different types of search meta. You're also able to add certain types of PDF metadata. So if ever you wanted to enhance the findability, searchability, the meta quality, the indexing of your doc, feel free to add meta here. If the meta is already included with the document, you would see it listed. In this case, I'm not seeing any, so there must be none. I'm going to skip images for 1 second. Just go to history. So this is the history of the doc, telling us what's been going on throughout the life cycle of this document. Permissions, we don't need to touch today, but this would be, again, related to administrative workflows, where you may have a document shared with yourself and other users, because if it's 500 pages, maybe you want to divide and conquer. So more than one user may or may not have access to this doc. And then output, we will end the day on output. This is the meat and potatoes. So we have HTML, PDF, and EPUB. Those are our 3 supported outputs. What's fun to understand is that once we convert this document up here, all beautiful 12 pages and 6 images, that work, that effort, will translate into these 3 types. All we need to do is request the download or preview. The same thing would be true for PDF. We would want to generate a new document, and EPUB would also enjoy the same qualifier. So we're not going to do that now, of course, because we haven't done any work yet, because I keep talking, but it's good, no? So I did skip images. We're going to go back to images. This image tab is your best friend. It can also sort of be your worst enemy, but I love it because it will show me all the images in a document. It'll show me if they have already an alt tag or alt text, and of course, a long description, which may or may not become deprecated very soon. This is just mostly for HTML rendering, as PDFs do not understand or contain a long description qualifier. So put everything you really want to see in the alt text, and if it's absolutely necessary, feel free to use long description for HTML users, but that's a different story.
Solely, real quick, if you wouldn't mind, the keyboard command to import a document is?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to get back to you. I know for certain that you can tab to the import modal, the import tab, and then click enter, and that will open up the screen for import. I am not 100% sure that there's actually a keyboard shortcut for that.
Okay,
but,
let's go ahead and move on, and we'll check into it and get back to that individual.
Yeah, I will check in just a second because I am going to show everyone keyboard shortcuts. And while we're in there, I will look for an import keyboard combo. So just to get back to images quickly, because they're in a list here, it easily enables me to go ahead and tag them all right away and not worry about looking for them in the document. Of course, that's not always easy because I lack context. I may need to know a little bit more about these images before I tag them. I may want to even hide them, and we're going to see what that means in just a second. So if they're, for example, what I like to call branding data. So a document and a publisher may very quickly decide that the page looks bare and that it should have a slightly oblong blue area at the bottom of each page. And that image may need to be tagged because it's showing up in the PDF as an image. So rather than for the 130 pages that blue image appears and would eventually require tagging, I'm able to just hide them all right here using the hide all selectors at the top of the list. So each image has a page, an image ID, alt option for alternative text, option for long description, ability to hide a zone, which we'll learn about in 1 second, and the ability to make visible or invisible the image itself. Of course, none of this would affect the visible nature of the PDF. It would always look the same. This really relates to the PDF tag tree structure, and of course, accessibility through machine consumption, such as a screen reader. So once you've looked through all your images and made decisions that you can hide what you know would be noisy, and as an example, having worked with this document before, I know that these pillars are noisy. We're not talking about engineering and how to hold up buildings. It's just there as a filler to make the page look academic, which is very nice. It looks a little bit better, but I'm not really that interested in converting it. So what I would do is hide the zone and hide the image. Now we're not going to use it, and then I can save and we can leave. So at least one image has been handled. We'll do the rest together as we move through the doc. So that's basically a top level view of how you get started. So you'll import. That means upload the doc. Then you're going to import to have the document converted. We're going to pull out all the information we can, including metadata, image data, and whatever else we can determine. And then we're going to present it to you. Once it's in your hand, you can click on a page. So welcome to the page editor. As you can see here, we have a number of yellow boxes with small green numbers in the top right corner, and they're automatically drawn on the page. The reason for that is, of course, the import process. So Equidox saw that there was some text here and made some clear and concise decisions to wrap them in these zones. If you're happy with what you see and you think Equidox has done a great job at setting up these zones for you, then your work is essentially done. But in some cases, and let's just do a preview. So this is the preview button. It opens in a pop-up. So if ever you have your pop-ups blocked, you'll need to allow pop-ups like I'm doing right now. And then you reissue the request. So what we see here is a preview, and it's a preview of the document conversion in HTML. So basically, we want to see a reading order and a paragraph structure that we feel really matches the document itself. So to do that, I can draw zones manually by selecting a location on the page anywhere, clicking and dragging the mouse to create a zone. So that's one way I can create zones, manual zone creation. It's very effective. It's just a little bit time consuming. So we try not to go that route. We try to use some of the automated tools provided to us within the application, namely the sensitivity slider. So to better demonstrate the sensitivity slider, I'm going to select another page, this page here. So if I ask for a preview from the preview button again at the top right, what we see here is a bunch of data, and it's all on the screen, which is great. But as you can see, we have a pretty sincere problem. The problem is that it's reading this first sentence. The past decade has seen an increased emphasis, and then it goes straight to the next line up here, which would make total sense. Complete an accessibility audit. So that's not the correct reading order. Also, you'll see that the text structure has these weird big blocky lines in between, and they don't really look like paragraphs. So that's not very helpful either. So to solve that, I'm going to use the sensitivity slider. Oops, sorry. Need to zoom out here. Sorry, what's happening? Okay, great. So the sensitivity slider changes the granularity of the awareness of the structure of the page. Sounds fancy, but it's not. If I slide this to 0 and I ask for a preview, I have exactly no data because there's no zones, which makes sense to me. If I slide this up to 1, you can see that I do have zones, but once again, I've got this weird problem where all the paragraphs have these weird spaces between them, and I don't really want to read it that way. So what I do is slide the sensitivity up to such a point where, drum roll, roughly 10. So at 10, I see now that I actually have some structure in paragraph that looks logical to me. And then if I issue a preview, I can see clearly that these are actually paragraph data. So that makes a lot more sense to me. And that's probably what I'm going to want to do. So knowing that this page, whoops, my apologies. Knowing that this page requires a zone sensitivity of 10, of course, I have the option of applying it to all pages because there's a very strong likelihood that the whole document is going to contain the same sensitivity, likelihood. This can vary with, say, multi-article periodicals, a magazine, for example, newsletters. These things won't necessarily be identical on every page. Like annual reports, they may choose a completely different font on one page or whatever the case may be. We're lucky, as we can see from the page preview tab at the top of the left-hand side of the screen. So we looked at the page tab where sensitivity was available. There's the pages tab where all the pages are available. And then there's the zone tab. So we're going to look at that next. I'm going to click on this screen. Great. So I'm going to convert this page. I'm going to start at the page tab, and I'm going to look at my page settings. Right now, I'm not going to worry about the reading order or page orientation, but very obviously the page is well ordered, orientated, I mean, because it's a portrait page. If it were landscape, I might want to switch it. So that's an option. We'll look at this on another page because this is fairly simple. I'm going to set my sensitivity to, what did we say, like 10? There we go. So this is a title. They're very far apart, and it's a good example. So I don't really want these two to be in two different zones because, see, I get this odd line break here in my preview. So very simply, I'm going to select a zone, and I'm able to remove it. So just as easily as I can create a zone, I can remove a zone. Just as easily as I can remove a zone, I can resize a zone. So now I got a zone with the simple act of a resize that will hold the whole title in one zone rather than two. And then I'm able to preview. Oops, I missed it. There we go. So now I see that it's all on one line as part of one thought in one title. So now that I have a zone for this title drawn, I'm really happy. I can go up here and looking at these guys here, I can probably maybe save the page if I want, just to be cautious. So that's an option. If I were done, I could click that the page was validated. That would turn this check mark green and move me to the next page, but we're not done quite yet. I can, of course, preview. As I get older, the zoom buttons are becoming more and more useful. So there's the zoom option to zoom in and or out of a page. And then finally, the shortcut keys. So I'm going to demonstrate a few things right now, specifically how to turn a zone into a heading. And I'm going to demonstrate the shortcut key H and how that works. And while I'm here, I'm going to look for an import shortcut. Nope, we're going to have to go with the tab for now. But I will try to see if I can get a ticket opened to make sure there's keystrokes available for those tabs on the side. It's a great point. It should not be a problem for us. Thank you for that contribution. So I was discussing creating a heading. So as we all know, heading structure is very important. It's important for us in understanding where we are in a document and being able to, of course, navigate a document. So we want to make sure we're setting our heading structures properly. The hardest part of that, honestly, is remembering when you get on the 80th page of a doc and you see a header and you haven't seen one in a while, whether it's an H3 or an H2. But other than that, setting a header is as simple as selecting the zone. And then once the zone is selected, I get to choose my zone type. So in this case, it's by default set to text. I'm going to switch that to heading. You can see, of course, that there are other types. I promise you we will not cover them all today. But here's heading for the moment. Excuse me, sorry. So now I have this set to an H or a heading. Here's where I would set the language. So if this was French, I could override the default. But of course, I have no interest in doing that because it's English. This is the order of the zone. And that, of course, means reading order. So as you can see here, I have a 2 for the title, for the heading. And I have a 4 for a guide for California community colleges. So they're going to be read on the screen one after the other. If ever we wanted to manipulate that order, order is where we would do that. So in cases where something may be written in a circle on a screen, or of course if it's a 2-column document or a 3-column document, there's lots of different types of ways to design a page. So the order isn't always going to be top down, left to right, and we're able to control that right here. So we can set the order to anything we want. And then of course we can reorder the page for 2-column, 3-column, or 4-column using the page property tab and setting the reading order to the desired reading order, default top down. And then you can click reorder. You can see here now that my zones have been ordered numerically again. It doesn't go from 2 to 4 anymore. It goes from 2 to 3, but nothing else will change. This really matters. If I make this, let's say, -1, just to show you what I really mean, you'll notice that the guide for California is down here right now. But by making it -1, which is less than 1, it's of course going to go right to the top of the page right there. I could have also made it 0, just not to confuse anyone. But that's why it's important to make sure we're always aware of the order. But thankfully, we have tools that make that easy that I just demonstrated in the reading order reset right here. Great. So I have a heading. You can see that it's gotten much larger, the text, indicating it's an H1. If you don't believe me, I can show you in the code. So very easily here, I can see that there's an H1 for maintaining accessibility. That's great news. You never have to worry about this. This view is HTML for those that know. For those that don't, you can forget about it. It's gone now. But essentially that tag tree in HTML is going to help us create a tag tree for the PDF and for the EPUB. So that's why we're validating in HTML, because if it reads properly here in the correct order and everything looks good, there's a very, very, very strong chance it's going to be exactly the same in both the other export models. So this was set to H1 by using a pull down. I'm going to set this to an H2, but I won't use a pull down. I'm just going to click on H2 with my keyboard. So I click the key H stroke and the number 2 in succession, and it automatically sets my heading level. So I don't have to use my mouse, which is, of course, time saving. I'm just going to preview, and you'll see that the guide, of course, changes. Excuse me. And then if we look at the code, I'm sorry if I said this wasn't going to come back, but you can see that definitely an H2 right there. So that's great. Again, you don't have to worry about that. It's just for nerds. But I'm a nerd. So, but even though you're not a nerd, it does matter that we want those tags to be beautiful and that at the end of the day, our PDF works for the person we're serving it to. You can see down here, I have March 17th with a hyperlink. So if I look at this, that looks fine. And I could theoretically leave it like that. But if I wanted to, we do have the ability to create links. So I could create another zone if I wanted, just like that. I could go to my lists and look at link. So once I've changed the type to link, it's going to give me different link properties or zone properties. That's true for every zone. So text will give you some, heading will give you slightly different ones. You know, the lists, which we'll look at in the advanced training. There's a lot, a bigger difference here for lists. So there's lots. There's a table too, and we won't talk about any of those today. So don't worry, but we will talk about link quickly. So all link really needs is an anchor. I could go ahead and copy it right out of this page right here and paste it in here. It would need the HTTP. There we go. So now if I preview the page one more time, we'll see that I actually have a link here and I'd be able to click on it. Easy as that. If the link was already provided to us in the document, Equidox will do its best to populate this on your behalf, but that's not always true. So there are cases where there are URLs without links, but that's okay. So this page is going fairly well. It would be very quick if I wasn't explaining everything, of course. So normally a page like this would take you maybe 15 seconds once you learn how to use the app, and the other pages are about the same, but I'll show you how to become proficient. The only thing we're missing on this page, well, there's 2 or 3 possible things missing, and I'm just going to demo them because we're demoing. So first, this is not optional, is this image. I have to handle this. Now, I got this young lady and this young man, and they're doing computers. I approve. It's a great choice. Lots of industry hype these days around technology. So I may want to put girl and boy plus computer here. That's totally possible. I could put, since I know it's California, California Community College students, I could just put students. It's really not necessarily up to you, but it's up to your institution to decide what you want to convert to what detail, and then, you know, make sure you're attaining those standards. So if your admin says, don't worry about these images because they don't really add a lot of value, what we really want to talk about is maintaining accessibility to information technology. This is not necessarily adding value to this document, but nonetheless, let's leave it in. There's no problem. I think they look earnest and I want to support them. So nothing will change on the page, but something will change in the code. In the back now, I have an image with the alt tag we just typed, girl, boy plus computer. Again, don't worry about that. More importantly, if I go back to the images tab, my images tab will have girl and boy plus computer back at the document properties level right at the top. So as we saw at the beginning of the document, we could go ahead and knock all these out here, or we could just wait till we see them inside the document. And then once you're done, if you come here and you realize, oops, I missed one, you can just click on that image, and of course it will take you to the page where that image resides for you to decide whether you should keep it or not. So that's fun. It makes it easy when you're finishing a doc to make sure it's properly remediated and that you didn't forget anything. So last but not least, I'm going to show you another image trick. So this image was in the document provided to me by the PDF, by the author for reasons and intent that were distinct. For that reason, I cannot change the type and it will always remain image and I need to handle it. What I can do though is hide it and hide the zone. And what do you think will happen? It'll disappear from my preview. Oops, 1 second. It'll disappear from my preview and it will be artifacted in the PDF. So this really means now that we've not eliminated it from the PDF itself, but we've eliminated it from the accessibility of the PDF, which could be quite fine. Like I said, it depends on whether you want to support the earnest students or not, and I do. So there they are. Hello. But there's another type of image. That type is called a graphic. So if you look down here, I got a little logo. There's no distinct need to catch this necessarily and include it, but let's say we do want to. As you know, we can draw our own zones manually. So I did that by dragging my mouse over what I want to capture. So it can be anything on the screen. As long as the zone is on top of it, we're good to go. And then I'll select type graphic. And then all that you need to know from this point on is that it behaves exactly like an image. All I need to do is enter an alt tag, and it would be the accessibility center of the CCC, like that. So now when I click preview, I get the image included with the document. So that can be helpful in cases where maybe there's a lot of small images and you don't want to necessarily tag them all. You could just create a larger zone on top of them and only tag them once. If something is just interesting or informative and you want to make sure it's captured, you can always use the graphic option. Again, behaves exactly like an image. Here's another thing you can do is that as this area is an image, it's not going to render any text on the screen. So even if I were to select Accessibility Center with my awesome skills at zone creation, so I created a zone over just the words Accessibility Center. I'm going to ask for a preview, and we'll see that those words don't appear. It's upsetting. I really want to give credit to the center, but it's because it's an image. So we can't render text from an image, or can we? So I'm going to introduce you to zone source. You'll see zone source for pretty much all zone types. And one of the things you can do is switch the zone source from PDF, which would mean we have readable, selectable, copy, paste, searchable text. If we have all those things, PDF's going to work for us. If we don't have all those things, we may need to invoke an OCR process. So what we're going to do is invoke OCR on this zone over Accessibility Center and ask it to convert that to text. So we'll go ahead and try. Oops, missed the word accessibility. That's okay. So forgive it. If it makes a mistake in the scan, or you feel it could have done a better job converting, you can go ahead and type in corrections. So with some older docs or ones that are poorly scanned, you will see a lot of errors over here, and you will want to go in and do some touch-ups. Thankfully, spell check works there, see? So you can use your spell check, and it'll light up in red. You can just kind of go through and click on any words that may have been poorly captured by the OCR. Oops, so I'm just gonna leave this here. Oops, I made a bobo. I shouldn't have moved it, but I was trying to demo something. All right, let's just get rid of it. Well, actually, let's not get rid of it. Another thing you can do is use the custom zone source. So I mentioned PDF OCR, which of course we can click and use the convert to text option. But then there's also custom. So in custom, you can put anything you want. I can just put my name, and I'll get the credit for all of this hard work. That's fun. And you'll see basically that my name appears here. It's very deceiving, of course. a specialist. You don't want to be giving your own opinion in the custom field, but it does help if ever there are assets that are just a bit tricky to capture. So it gives you that ability. So that's, yes.
Solely, if I may jump in real quick. We have about 15 minutes left, and I really wanted to cover the entire agenda as it was laid out, and I don't want to go down the wrong path here. So if you have one more example of OCR, that'd be great, but we still need to go over the preview and the publishing and the export of the document. And if you want to move past this first page, I think that would do everybody a great favor.
Yeah.
Entire page. Thank you.
It's funny. We can look at another page really quickly, and then I'll show you another example of OCR. So for a page like this, let's just start from the top. Basically, no zones, moving the sensitivity to what we remember is about 10. You can click here, set the header, say to an H3 using your keyboard or pull down menu, and then preview. So that's great. So if you've converted all these pages and you've clicked the green check mark on top like that, and you've done it for every single page. So as you can see, all our headers and zones have been set. All the zone properties are intact. You just click the check mark. I won't go through them all to save a little time. You'll see here that all these will have the green check mark, meaning they're ready for export. You go to output, and at this point, you're able to preview the HTML document, which is kind of fun because it puts the entire PDF on one long, beautiful HTML doc, and you get to review all the work you've done, setting headers and everything else. Of course, you can download that as a zip file. You can then put that on your own LMS or share it with an individual. So that's great. PDF, as we discussed earlier, you would just need to generate it. You just click generate. It goes through the process of taking all the work we've done, setting the zones prior, the paragraphs, reading orders, the image alt tags and links. It'll put those all into a PDF for us. And then that PDF is available here. I like to right click and save as, or of course you can just click on it and it will open in a viewer. So this is now a fully tagged PDF. And if you inspected the tag tree, which we can look at in an advanced session, you would see that all the work we've managed to do in Equidox is now translated into the PDF itself. And I'm sorry if I stuck on that page. I don't know what happened, but we did actually find a lot of value in just a few zones.